Greetings and welcome to another episode of the Hammer and Umpire Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Kevin Weber. It's been an interesting season so far. I've had some unique experiences. A few of them I'd like to share with you here in this podcast episode. I had some unique things happen to me when I was working a JUCO regional with a batting out of order situation, which I will share with you in a segment. Also, just the whole concept of working in some of the more high-profile games that we might get an opportunity to work in when we're kind of in the eye of the storm. So I know that's the title of this episode, and I have a little segment that talks about that in particular as well. I've got an umpire spotlight, brought that back for you. And I had some interesting experiences with video review for the first time this season, which I have a little segment for you as well. So sit back and listen to another episode of the Hammer and Umpire Podcast. Well, I'm sure that you noticed the title of this episode. We are the eye of the storm. And you maybe were wondering how I came up with that title. But basically, I came up with it working, the JUCO regional recently, in which I was working with a couple really good umpires, but one umpire that wasn't as familiar with three-man as myself and my other partner. And he did a heck of a job. I'm not saying, he didn't do well. But, he was a little bit apprehensive and, I guess nervous a little bit about potentially making a mistake like we all are at times. And we got out there and we're in the first inning of the final game we did. We did 3 games together working the 3-man. And it was a good crowd and the players and the benches were in it right from the very first pitch, a lot of noise and, a championship atmosphere, which was cool. It's great to work those kind of games. And so, you got your particular signals and things that you do for 3-man, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. And, he was working third base and I was working first base. And, of course, we had our plate guy. Usually signals start with plate guy, go to the guy in the middle or third base, and then come back around to first base. And he's giving the signals back and forth. He's not looking at me and stuff. And so I basically, in between innings, and I try not to talk to guys between innings unless you have to, but I'm like, hey, man, you got to focus. You got to focus on me. You got to focus on us out here. You got to, we're like the eye of the storm. We got a lot of stuff going on, but we're in control. We're calm here in the middle. And, of course, I'm real big into signals, especially when you're working 3 and 4-man. But it's great for 2-man, too, because that's like your pre-pitch stuff. And you're telling yourself what you're doing. And, of course, you're telling your partners that you're going to be doing that, too, so they have more confidence in rotations and things that are happening. So I was thinking about that because I've been in that situation too where you start getting that kind of tunnel vision because you're just, okay, I'm going to focus on what I'm doing. I'm going to make sure I'm going to the right spot. I'm going to cover the things I need to cover. I'm not going to mess this up. You're not necessarily worrying about your safe outs or your balls and strikes and stuff. You're just focusing on that and you're not paying attention to the other things that are part of umpiring a 3 and 4-man system. And I've seen this with state finals too, a couple that I've worked, where you'll get an umpire on the crew that is just hyper-focused on himself and not everything else going around because you get a bigger crowd and everything there too, and you kind of get caught up in the situation. So I think that's important for all of us out there to think about it. It's natural to get a little nervous or apprehensive about something, but once you get into that, you've got to focus on your partners and what you're doing and be aware of what's happening out there, and then that will calm you down and you can just work the game and umpire it the best you can and make the best calls you can. If you are not aware of what's going on with your partners when you're working 3 and 4-man, that's when bad stuff usually starts to happen and rotation gets missed or somebody doesn't read something very well, those kind of things, all right? So I was, really kind of thinking about that as I was working that game. And, I had a lot of fun. It was the most fun game that I've worked so far this year. I love it when there's a lot more, energy on the baseball field from the crowd and the benches and the players. And there's more attention, too, because, somebody's going home, their season's ending. Some people, their careers are ending with this particular game. But, that's okay. We want to work those games. We want to get to the point where we're in those bigger games and, what we're doing really matters. It always matters, but, when you get to the postseason, it matters a little bit more for everybody that's involved. So if you are working postseason or you're working some of those big games, which are all coming up here still very soon, make sure that, you're in that moment and you're just focused on what you need to, and you're doing the communication the best you can, and that will help you along. I've really found that over the years. And I know I've been that guy too that's just been hyper-focused with the tunnel vision. And I've learned through, gaining some confidence in what I'm doing, but also just paying attention to my responsibilities and making sure I'm communicating with my partners visually and verbally and with signals. That really helps me a lot. And I think it will help you as well. I'd like to talk for a few minutes about batting out of order. It's a situation that hopefully doesn't happen too often to you, but it's one that you need to be ready for if it does happen. And it can be a little bit tricky. I actually had this happen to me recently in a junior college regional game here in Michigan. I can't recall ever having a batting out of order situation in a collegiate game. And I really can't remember the last time I've had to deal with it. It's been a while. It doesn't happen too often. I'm sure it might have been in some kind of summer league game or some kind of... I don't think it's even happened to me in a high school game, to be honest with you. But nonetheless, this is what happened. And it happened in the top of the first inning. Okay? So the first batter in the game got a double. He was on second base. Second batter proceeded to make an out. The third batter up hit a single to center field, and the runner on second scored. And then the opposing coach, the home team coach, came to me and said, hey, they batted out of order. So I said, okay, well, let's take a look here. So I took out my lineup card, and I said, well, who is supposed to be the proper batter? And he said, well, it's supposed to be... number 12 is supposed to be up. So I look over at first base, and number 5's on first base. So I look on my lineup sheet, and the third hitter should have been number 12, and the fourth hitter should be number 5. So I know what the situation is, but just to make sure, I was working with a 3-man crew at the time. I called time and got my partners with me, and I said, yes, I believe we have a batting out of order here. The proper batter was supposed to be number 12, but number 5 here hit a single. So what we need to do here, and just make sure I'm doing this right here, number 12 is going to be out. Number 5 is going to be hitting again. And we're going to take that runner that just scored and put him back on second base. So they're like, yep, that's correct. So I told the violating coach that this was a situation. He kind of knew it right at the time. And we took care of it and proceeded with the inning without any problems. The biggest thing, whenever you have a batting out of order, this is for my newer umpires out there, that will help you, is like who's supposed to be the proper batter. That's what you want to know. Who was supposed to be up? And if the coach that brought it to my attention, he did it perfectly, by the way. If he would have done this while number 5 was still up and would have come out and said, hey, it's supposed to be number 12 up, well, then number 12 would have come up and taken the count that would have been happening at the time. If it was 1 ball, 1 strike or whatever it was, then he just would have taken a spot in the batter's box. That's not the right time. So he waited till something happened or the guy got on base so that he could get that out, and then we move on with it. If he doesn't say anything, we just keep going. Of course, as an umpire, even if you know that the wrong kid is up, you don't say anything about it. It's kind of the responsibility of the teams to figure that stuff out and make sure people are batting in the proper order. But if it does happen, you just have to say, well, who's the proper batter? If they do it before the next pitch or something like that, like he did, because like if he would have done it afterward, let's say number 5 got that single, and then the next kid came up and they threw a pitch, well, now he was proper, and we have a new situation there. So it's something to study. But usually, if you know who the proper batter is, and you know if they requested the violation at the correct time, then you usually can take care of it without too much trouble. I learned a lot of that stuff from the different camps I've gone to, and to me, the best person I've ever heard talk about it is Brent Rice, and he has this whole kind of like lesson on batting out of order, and he'll go through the simple things more like that, and then he goes into the very complicated things, and he just knows it in and out, which is great. I mean, if you know that, that's fine, but usually you don't get it too complicated. You usually can figure it out. So nonetheless, something to keep in mind. Make sure that you are familiar with that. There are some resources out there that you can probably look up some things on batting out of order and how to deal with those things. But it's definitely one thing that doesn't happen very often, but when it does, you want to make sure that you get it right, because you look like, $1 million if you get it right. So I was happy that we didn't have one that was too complicated, and we took care of it and got it resolved without any trouble.
This episode is brought to you by Love Hurts. Kiwi Kwan has had quite a career, from childhood roles in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and The Goonies to a recent Academy Award win for Everything Everywhere All at Once. But now Ki finally stars as a leading man in the film Love Hurts. Love Hurts is the perfect date night movie with its mix of over-the-top action, comedy, and a ton of heart. Love Hurts, only at theaters February 7th.
Well, it's been a while, but I'm going to bring back the Umpire Spotlight. In previous episodes, I've done quite a few of those, but I haven't done any recently. So this time, I'm going to spotlight Dick Runche, one of the great college baseball umpires, and actually the first umpire inducted into the College Baseball Hall of Fame back in 2011. He's also a member of the ABUA Hall of Fame back in 2002. And so Mr. Runche was a college umpire from 1976 to 1998. He worked 5 College World Series, 1982, 83, 1990, 1994, 1998, and he worked 4 College World Series final games on the plate back in 82, 90, 94, 98. Worked 19 NCAA Division I Regionals, 3 Mid-American Conference Championships, 12 Big Ten Championships. Then after he, retired from the field, and a little bit while he was still on it, he was a regional evaluator and advisor for the NCAA baseball umpire program, helping to select who worked the NCAA tournament. And he was a tournament representative as well for most of the early 1990s. Mr. Runche, of course, was born in Saginaw, Michigan. And, he's lived most of his life, I believe, in Michigan, except for the times where he's been off umpiring. So he was, one of the founders of kind of the modern way that we do umpiring and, the programs and stuff that we have. He got into umpiring in 1968 as part of a summer job, calling youth league games in Dearborn, Michigan. He liked it so much that after graduating from school, he went to the Summers Pro School in Florida. And from there, he worked in the New York Penn League in 1973, the Midwest League in 1974, the Southern League in 1975 before deciding to become a family man. And he spent 30 years working for Detroit Diesel, retiring as a purchasing manager. But nonetheless, he was umpiring all along the way and was able to get into the collegiate game because some of his umpiring friends mentioned that there was some opportunities in the college game. So Even though he still worked some pro games, including the 1984 American League Playoff Series between the Detroit Tigers and Kansas City Royals, it was a college game that opened up most of his avenues throughout his life. He was also a substitute umpire during the 1979 umpire strike, working some American League games. And of course, he worked the 84 ALCS as well. Not only that, he was able to work some international games. He worked the 1987 Pan Am Games, the 1988 Baseball World Cup, and the 1992 Olympics in Barcelona. He served as a director of the umpires, covering the 04 Olympics and the 08 Olympics, and he had a lot of success as far as moving umpires along and helping young umpires to realize some of their potential and their dreams along the way. So that is the Umpire Spotlight, one of the great college umpires of all time, Dick Runcie. I had the opportunity to work 3 ball games this collegiate season in which we had video review available. And these are the first 3 that I have ever had the opportunity to work. And of course, as you might imagine, I was a little apprehensive. I want to make sure I got things right and did things correctly and followed the protocol and knew what was reviewable and such things. The first one I was at Illinois, Chicago for a game, and I was working third base. And, we talked as a 3-man crew beforehand and what was reviewable. The crew chief, he was experienced with video review. So when we got down to the field, they had the monitors down the third base line. So we reviewed all the potential angles. He put on the headset. He talked to the person on the other end and said what kind of views he had. If he had, if it was able to be zoomed in or not, or if he can slow it down or back it up or move it forward or whatever you might want to do. And so we went through all that. That was interesting. And then we worked the game and we had no reviews. So I guess that's good that we had no reviews. There was one that we maybe could have had on a hit by pitch if the coach had wanted to review it, but they did not. So, there we go. Then I worked a game at Michigan State, and the Big Ten, I believe, is starting to move toward review in their regular season games. I mean, they do it in their conference tournament. And they did have review there, and it's located, again, down the third base line by their, bullpen type area. And in the first inning, we had a review on a play at the plate, and I did not go to the monitor on that one. I stayed with the calling umpire, the plate umpire, and it was an inconclusive, video. So the call stood as it was. I saw it later on, on the replay, and was able to kind of see what my partners were able to look at. That was a 4-man crew, and they, one angle looks like he's out. One angle looks like he could be safe. It was a really close call, so he was called out, so we kept that. So that was interesting. And then the last time I had review this year was a game at Valparaiso, which was an interesting situation too. I was working the plate there. We had a 3-man crew. And just like the Illinois-Chicago, that's a ESPN Plus game. So they, Missouri Valley, they have review there, I believe, for pretty much all their games. Nonetheless, I talked to my crew beforehand, and, I was reviewing all the protocols, and I had a couple of experienced guys that had, more experience with review than I have. And so I said, hey, I know I'm the crew chief, but I want to make sure we get this right. So if there's something I'm missing, make sure that we do the right thing. So we ended up with 4 reviews. Actually, the first one, there was one that was asked to review on a situation in which we had a hit by pitch, but also a check swing, and the coach wanted to know if he could review the check swing, and that's non-reviewable. But we had safe out play at second base, safe out play at first base, force play slide rule review, and then we had, I can't remember the other one right now, but we had 4 of them, and one was overturned, but that's okay. We got it right, and the other ones were confirmed, and I went to the monitor on a couple of them because you usually have one guy staying and 2 guys going there, whether it's the calling umpire or not, crew chief, all the protocols that go with it. And I kind of got thrown into the situation, and I feel way more comfortable with it now. I hope next year I get some opportunities to work games that have review. And I like the fact that we can definitely get it right. You obviously don't want to make a call that's potentially incorrect and get it overturned. But then again, I don't want to make a call that's potentially incorrect and not get it overturned, and then it affects the outcome of the game. And that's like the worst case scenario. So anyway, I think overall it was a good experience with review. I liked it. I hope that I continue to get opportunities to use it, and obviously I will get better at the protocols and how I handle myself. How you handle yourself while you're not reviewing it, how you handle yourself while you are reviewing it, making sure you're communicating properly with the coaches and about what aspects of the play are being reviewed, making sure you're communicating with them that they're using one of their challenges, their 2 challenges or not, or whatever it might be, or if it's in the last 2 innings of the ball game, you're using the crew chief review that's allowed. All those kind of things. Just like everything, the more you use it and the more experience you have with it, the better you are. But hey, I'm always about getting the call right. Whether obviously 99% of the games that I work do not have any kind of review, and if needed, I don't have a problem getting with my partners and making sure we get something correct, because that is the most important thing out there, more so than our ego. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. I thought it was an interesting year as far as my new experiences with review, and hopefully I will have some others in the future. If you have experience with review, shoot me a message and let me know what kind of experiences you've had with it. Thanks for sticking with me for another episode of the Hammer and Umpire podcast. I appreciate all my listeners out there all over North America and other places around the world. It's great that I have a consistent following and know that I can keep this going and that there are people actually listening. So I do appreciate that. I hope some of the segments I had today get you thinking about a few things. I know I've been pretty lucky throughout my umpiring career to have had some unique experiences. I've got a few more coming up here in the next few weeks that I'll share in the next podcast episode. I'm going to be working my 3rd Michigan High School Athletic Association State Finals. So those have been great experiences the other 2 times I've done it, and I'm sure this one will be as well. And I will share how those things go. We work 4-man in those games, 2 semifinal games and a final. So it should be very fun and interesting. Until next time, keep calling strikes.